Call this USD 350 Board of Education meeting to order. Welcome to all visitors in the camera. Is there additions or changes to the agenda?
Yeah, 2 additions since publication. These were in your packet, but we have item 1 under section C will be certified employee evaluation process and procedures, and then item 2 will be activity fund treasurer. So I'd request that we add those to amend the agenda.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. President, move we approve the agenda as corrected.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the agenda, noted changes. Any discussion? All in favor, right hand. Opposed, 6-0. Consent agenda. Minutes of September 4th is in your packet there, and the financial statements and warrants, and there's additional ones right here at your place. Question. Here are the signatures for minutes.
About to print them out, trying to get them to you.
I was signing other things, I missed that one.
You should have an activity fund report also. It says current cash balance report on it. And then the yellow was additions to the check register. And then there's a table, which is your financial statement. This is the first one we've gotten so far this year. You can plan on those things coming with the packet from now on.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the consent agenda.
Second.
And moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 6-0. Business item. First thing is our audit report. Who has the floor?
Thank you. Stand over here. I'm not sure where to stand. I want to make sure you can all see me. Before we get started, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to do the audit. It's always a pleasure to come down here. Your staff is always more than willing to answer all of our questions. I hope we don't get them too flustered, but they seem to handle everything very well for us. We always try to pull different pieces every year. We try to do a little something different than the norm, just so they don't get too calm with us now. We always try to So before I want to talk about, we've had some reporting changes this past year with our statutory basis of our financial statements, and I'll go through that here a little as we go through the report. Just the report on page 1, our independent auditor's report. I kind of just want to remind you that we are issuing this report in accordance with the statutory basis of accounting, which is called the Kansas Municipal Audit Guide. Now, if we were to do full GAAP statements, we would capitalize the infrastructure, all of the school buildings, all of the desks, chairs, we would depreciate those out. But Kansas gives us the ability to do something they call statutory basis to get away from having to do all that, and to also minimize the cost of the audit and the reporting that goes with that. So with statutory basis, what that means is that we're basically cash basis, money coming in, money going out. However, we do book accounts payable and encumbrances. And we do not report, so we do not report our debt. I mean, our debt payments go through like expenditures, but we don't have those as liabilities on the balance sheet. So that is kind of quirky when you're looking at full accrual versus the statutory basis of accounting. And if you have any questions anytime with that, please feel free to ask me. On page 1, we do issue financial statements that include the school and the library. However, we're not including the Education Foundation, which we disclose that in the 3rd paragraph on page 1. So we are omitting one of the district's 2 component units. So we fully disclose that there. Now, if we would have, disclosed the Education Foundation, our cash balances would have been reported at $1,111,074 for the Education Foundation as of June 30th. So that would have adjusted our cash balances considerably on statement 1. It's a clean opinion though in accordance with the statutory basis. The next big statement that is a nice overall view is on page 3. This is our statement 1. This gives you a summary of cash receipts, expenditures, and unencumbered cash for the entire year. Basically, we started the year out with $1,315,011, beginning unencumbered cash balance. We had a prior period adjustment this year with the general fund. Basically, the state of Kansas, with the regulatory basis of accounting, I've always had to go back and flip to the back statements to show you the true cash balance of the general fund at year end was 0 with that late state aid payment, the way they used to make us report that. Well, guess what? This year they finally changed it. So that's why we have that prior period adjustment. Our general fund this year is actually our true general fund with our late state aid payment added. Our cash balance goes down to 0. So finally, we were able to get that fixed. The auditors, we complained enough across the state that this just wasn't right, so we finally got some things done. So that's why we have that prior period adjustment. And then you'll see that our ending unencumbered cash balance for the general fund is now finally 0, how it always should have been. So with that, if you take the $1,315,011, add our prior period adjustment, because that really shouldn't have been a negative. We really should have started out with 0 cash in the general fund. Our true cash balance would have been $1,384,585 in cash at the beginning of the year. And then we ended it with $1,195,321. Now, overall, our cash balances have declined. It was $189,264 that we saw a decline in cash balances. However, I do want to point out that that was largely due to the expenditures you had in one fund alone, and that was your capital outlay fund. If you look at the cash balances there, we started out with $437,404, and we went down to $239,918. I mean, the other funds, we went up and down, 10, 15 grand, but the other funds kind of accounted for them, the small fluctuations. That was where our main cash decrease is from, which you have all approved those expenditures as they happen throughout the year. So I guess that's probably nothing that surprises you any. Does anyone have any questions on that page? Anytime you have questions, please feel free to just stop and ask. Statement 2 is the next page on page 4. This is also a nice overall view of your budget to actual expenditures for the year with your certified budget, and then we have our legal max adjustments with our head count. They usually come out in May or June with those. And then we also add back budget credits. And then the far right-hand column are variance over under. Either we meet budget, we're above or below. The negative means that we're under budget. We had no budget violations, so that's very good for the district. We're either at or below budget. Page 5 and 6 are pretty well your 2 main operating funds of the district with your general and your supplemental general fund. This is where a majority of your teaching salaries come out of, and a lot of your district operating expenses, as well as your state aid coming in. Finally, on the general fund on statement 3.1, our cash goes down to 0 to show that we fully expended all of our cash balances with our state aid during the year, and we fully expended our budget. Which, if we don't fully expend our budget in the general fund, they penalize us in the following year for that, and reduce our state aid in the following year. So that's something we always have to make sure it goes down to 0 with that state aid, equalization aid being in there. And then if you spend too much, they'll penalize you next year too. So you never want to go below. So that's always something we always have to tightly monitor at year end. And I know Julianne and Josh, they'll work hard this next year with our change in staff to make sure that we do that again also. The supplemental general fund basically, with need, we typically always use the entire budget on that with our expenditures. And you'll see that our cash balances in the supplemental general have remained fairly consistent between years. And that's on page 6. We could go through each fund in detail. I really wasn't planning on it unless you want me to. I was just going to draw some attention to some items in the financial statements, and if you have questions at any time, please let me know. One of the things on page 38 in the footnotes to the financial statements, we did just have one statute violation this year. Wasn't anything major. I just kind of wanted to point that out. It's page 38, footnote 9. With our district activity funds, we had one district activity fund that had a negative cash balance of $14 at year end. And with the statute violations, we're never supposed to have a fund that has negative cash, even if it is in district activity funds. And that was with our athletics fund, and that is shown on page 30. We have an ending unencumbered cash balance. It's the first one listed in athletics. We always have to take it in before accounts payable, and so that was negative $14, so that caused that statute violation. The other thing of probably interest as a board member is how much debt do we have outstanding with the district, and that's shown on page 39 of the financial statements. That should be the last page that we have. This year, our Bluebird Activity Bus capital lease was paid off at year end. And then we still have the 2004 school building bonds, $570,000 outstanding, which will be paid, they'll be paid during the 14-15 school year. They'll mature. So, you know, we really only have 3 more years of those general obligation bonds to pay out. So that should hopefully free up some room after 3 years, till we get through the next 3 years of budgets.
We're actually planning on paying that off next September.
Paying it off early if everything goes well. Very good. Save interest costs. I agree. If you have the money, I do it, because there's no way, unfortunately, at the bank, we are getting between 3.5% to 4.25% on our cash that we have in the bank. They're just not doing that right now.
I hear you.
I hear you. You probably get that complaint all day long. I even hated to bring it up. That's kind of a brief overview of the financial statements. I didn't want to get too detailed with them. I know that you look through these monthly. I will say though, in talking with Josh this afternoon on the phone, he did bring up that our cash balances are better than what the board thought they were with our adjusting journal entries we had during the audit. I was going to bring that up a little later, but I'll bring it up now. Basically, when we came in and did the audit, we started talking with Julianne about the rural small schools grant. We noticed we had a rather large cash balance sitting in there, and typically what we like to see is that expended down to zero. And talking with her, she goes, well, I know we spent that money on teacher salaries. So what we did is we went in and did adjusting journal entry between, I believe it was our supplemental general fund and the rural small schools. So that freed up some cash in your supplemental general. So that did actually increase the cash balances in those funds. Kind of moving money, but it was in the district's benefit. So, and that fund, that federal fund, that grant had to be used anyway,
Right.
with its
December of
timeline
last
by
year.
December of last year. So we had spent the money, so we took it and ran. The next probably 2 big things are our management letters. I was going to review those with the district if you have any questions on the financial statements before we move on. probably go over the one that has management letter at the top of it first. It's just the 2-page letter. Both of these comments we had last year. It's just a reminder to the board that we do not have proper segregation of duties. We are running on minimal staff. It's not a situation where we have one person just doing accounts payable, another person just doing payroll, another person receiving deposits as they come in. So it's very important to remind you that you are an integral piece of the oversight, just like I saw Merlin tonight with a signature stamp, which I'm so glad he has that in his custody now. And he's going through and reviewing checks and stamping them. That's very good internal control, and for the board members to be asking questions and reviewing the vouchers as the process goes through, because we do have minimal staff, and that oversight is very important. The next one, we also had this one last year too. We do have to put you on notice with our accounting standards that as of right now, you do not have someone on staff that could draft the financial statements I just went through with you and all of the relevant footnotes in its entirety. And so with our accounting standards, I'm now required to put you on notice of that. I know you're already well aware of that, but you know, the staff that we have, we're not hired to do just that. So it's kind of a moot point, but we still have to let you know.
That's not uncommon.
No, it's not. No. Actually, we do have some things though coming out with our independent standards, unfortunately, through our AICPA. And it's kind of funny to see what is coming down the pike with the public companies. They are now telling us as auditors, in Yellow Book, that's basically if the district was subject to a single audit, if you had over $500,000 in federal expenditures, which to my knowledge, St. John Hudson hasn't for quite some time. But if we did have to do a single audit, we would have independence issues with the new Yellow Book standards that are coming into effect at year end, because they're telling us as auditors that we cannot come in and draft your financial statements for you. So what we would have to do is we would have to implement safeguards. We would probably have to have someone like yourself or whoever that could review the financial statements. We would have to give you some kind of abbreviated disclosure checklist and have you go through or give you a sample. And you know, if you saw any missing footnotes or whatnot, you know, you could ask questions back and forth. But that is something that's coming down the pipeline. It's just, yeah, all the regulations. So just kind of wanted to put you on notice about that. I don't foresee that being a problem yet with the state of Kansas and the statutory basis. I'll be curious to see what they end up doing with all of that. But if we ever did have a single audit, we'd have to do some rework and plan ahead.
You're gonna give us plenty of heads up. Right.
As long as you give me plenty heads up, you have over $500,000 in expenditures. Because it's something that has to be in place during a bulk of the year, the entire school year, not just at year end. Those internal controls have to be in place during the entire year. But our federal funding with the American Reinvestment Recovery Act is all dried up. We didn't even have a single audit at the district. I know Dr. Kenworthy had been concerned about it when all that AIR money came out. But, I mean, St. John here, we didn't even qualify for the over $500,000 at that point. So, unless we have some big windfall, I don't know where that would come from with our government situation right now. But
It's going the other
I'm
way.
not too worried about it at this point. But I thought
Yeah.
we do have some interesting things coming down the line. The next letter I have is the governance letter. This is where a bulk of the comments come from. Basically, with our management letter comments, we have material weaknesses, which are significant deficiencies, and then our other general comments. Our material weakness was our segregation of duties that we just talked about. The next level, I kind of referred to it as a ladder, stepping down on the ladder, was our significant deficiency with the financial statement drafting. And now we have all those other items that did not make the material weakness or significant deficiency threshold. I am required to let you know that we did not have any disagreements with management at the bottom of page 1 during the audit. To my knowledge, on page 2, you have had no consultations with any other accountants on any other matters. And then we get down to those other comments, our audit recommendations I was talking about. Our inventory, the first comment that we have, that is a comment we've had in prior years. We would like to see the district's inventory listing updated. I think it's been approximately 3 years. I know it's due to limited staff, not having time to get to it, but we would always, you know, if we did have some additional staff that got freed up or some additional time somewhere, we would like that to be added to the inventory tracking software system that the district does have. Activity funds, nothing too extreme, but when we talk about gate receipts on the first one, and I realize that they're Lions Club volunteers, and I realize that they're doing this, you know, as a volunteer service, but instead of just handing all of the cash over, we really do need a cash count with a district official, school official, somebody, I don't know if it's, you know, the high school principal or the superintendent or somebody, but we really do need a cash count when the Lions Club hands that cash over, just for good internal controls. And so when the secretary gets it the next morning, she can recount it, and if there's anything that's missing or whatever, that the cash count problem can be resolved at that point in time. Just so it's not, because you just don't know if it makes it from point A to point B, or, but it's always nice to have that record keeping there. Textbook fund, this was just an oversight year end. We just always need to get that closed out and moved over to the district to record on the district's books. We do have some activity funds that have inactivity that we'd like to see reviewed, and possibly those cash balances, if those district activity funds aren't going to be used, somehow allocated back to the remaining activity funds so the students can use those for activities during the current year. There have been balances that haven't been used for a while, so we would like to see some of those reviewed and possibly closed. When we have our invoices in the activity funds, when they're paid, we do like the invoices to be canceled. Not all of them were canceled, it was just something we noticed on audit. It just kind of helps to avoid an invoice getting paid twice if someone were to go through the stack again. We did have the one on the Education Foundation last year with the component unit. We do typically like to see a defined line between the two entities and have someone other than the board clerk and superintendent be authorized signers on that Education Foundation bank account. Under payroll, the first three were prior year comments that we had. We would like to see, you know, one individual do the payroll data entry and then another person review it, just as an oversight. The second one, we would like to see a year-end payroll reconciliation performed, and that they tie back to the quarterly payroll reports. And then we also had, when we pulled one for sampling, we did have one employee that their W-4 withholding form did not match to the federal income tax withholding that was being withheld out of their payroll check within the payroll software. So that's just a double check we need to go through and make sure all of our W-4 withholdings tie back to our payroll software calculations that are being computed.
I got a question.
Yes.
So now, they had 3 withholdings or something, and it was not entered in the software with 3, or is the difference of?
I can't exactly remember the exact withholdings, but the number they had on their W-4 was not what was actually being withheld on their paycheck.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like their exemptions, is that what you're, yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, part of that, I was just wondering if it's, we're getting new software, right? And it's all automated from, no.
That part of it won't be automated.
That part of it won't be, because when those
That's
elections
something that can be
change.
changed on an annual basis, or actually it can be changed 5 or 6 times a year, depending on what the
Anytime the
individual
employee
has
wants it.
going on in their business, their life, whatever.
Mhm.
That'll all still have to be manually inputted. And I have spent considerable amount of time wading through prior years' W-4 forms that were not filed in employee files, trying to get everything organized and dealt with.
I kind of wonder if it would almost be better when you have an orientation. Well, I don't know. I mean, you've already had orientation, obviously, but I don't know if you do anything mid-year or whatever, just making everyone refill all of that out again No. I just didn't know if you could go and double check. That way you wouldn't have to refile
As I say, I
things.
just did away with that. We had been
Okay.
doing that prior to this
Okay.
last year. And it's just, wait easier to let them fill it out when they hire on. And if they have changes, then they need to let me be aware of it so that we can fill out a new form.
It's just the process of getting that first year initial update, yeah. Because we did have one district, they just said, okay, you're all gonna fill them out again because our withholdings aren't jiving, and they did that just the 1 year, and then after that, it was like, okay, if you want them updated, you need to contact us and let us know. Yeah, it was just the initial check there, trying to get everything updated again. We did have, and this was kind of an unusual one, the second to last one, when we cut our payroll checks, the accrued leave carryover that was paid out in June, leave payout was calculated incorrectly due to how the daily hours and the daily hourly rate were updated. But Julianne made that correction on the overpayment on the following payroll. I think it was just a timing issue of when everything got printed. And then also with that, our accrued sick leave, it was not correctly carried over with that cutoff. And when we did it, we do go in and do a calculation. We pull a sample of several employees and look at their sick leave, and we go through with their accrued leave at what they've used and see if the beginning balance and what they've used ties out to year end. Well, the one we had pulled, the sick leave didn't quite balance out, and then we discovered this problem. So that person was shorted approximately 33 sick leave hours. Now, you would assume that during payroll they would review that on their stub. I mean, that's typically a control that we see, but I guess this person didn't, so.
Well, and right now, they can't review anything because until we closed last fiscal year,
It's
until
not.
this audit is accepted, it's still showing last year.
It's still showing
leave
last year's
balances,
totals.
Usage.
Okay, but even at year end, they still didn't catch, yeah, that price. So, I mean, that's usually a double check. We assume that employees are reviewing their sick leave hours and vacation and whatnot. Under general matters, the first one was a repeat of a prior comment we had. We still would like to see policy and procedure manuals created and revised. I know that's a lot to ask with minimal staff, but I think, it would help if we ever do have staff changes or we have to fill in for an extended period of time, if an employee's out on extended FMLA leave or something like that. I think those manuals would help. Another thing, talking with Julianne on this, and we saw this going through and we were looking through our petty cash activity for the year. We prefer that the district not cash personal checks out of petty cash funds on behalf of district employees. That's kind of the situation where the district starts acting as a bank. I had a discussion with Julianne. I think we were doing it more of as a convenience.
We only had two incidences all
Two
year.
incidences.
And that's a first, and it was just a case of a semi-emergency situation for the staff member.
Yeah, we don't ever want to do that. And we talked with Julianne about that. I know it was a matter of convenience for them, but then what happens if the employee's check is overdrawn? Are we going to charge our employees overdraft charges and things like that? So it can get pretty sticky pretty fast. The third one, we did have a board member associated that did not abstain from voting when we designated the St. John National Bank as an official depository bank. I know it's not a big deal, it's sometimes in the public eye, just kind of as a general reminder that if you do have a conflict of interest, that, we just ask you to abstain from voting.
That was me.
I was trying to figure out who that was.
None of us know. We
And
forgive you,
can-
Chad.
I'm sorry. Since we approved those in one big, one
Yeah, we may want
big
to separate
list,
those out next
we
year.
pulled the one off the list.
Yeah.
Between all of us.
You got
we
kind of
can
set
all
up on that
remember
one. The next one, we just need to update our contacts on the insurance policies, get Dr. Kenworthy and Karen's name off and updated. And then we also had, this is with year-end cutoff, we have our funds that we appropriate out to the Recreation Commission every year when we do our budget. We had $25,000 at year-end that we should have paid out to the Recreation Commission. at year end, but we did not. It was another year end cutoff thing. And that's why on statement one, the cash balances for the Recreation Commission are higher than normal, because we hadn't paid that appropriation out yet. I'm kind of surprised the Recreation Commission didn't call you, but.
We didn't have budget authority to pay it out. We've been slowly trying to whittle it down. but
Well,
we
you had
haven't.
you did have a budget appropriation for that 25,000. I thought anyway, when I looked at it, because we hadn't used our full, page 18. Let me look
We got plenty of cash, is probably why they didn't call.
here. Yeah, I would assume so. The thing that drew my eye to it was that on page 18, we had appropriation to Recreation Commission. We had paid out $95,000, but our budget was $120,000.
Okay.
That's what drew me to, that's what caught my eye when I reviewed. So we were under budget by 25, and you know, typically are always right out that 120, we've always paid it out, so. Let's see, we've already talked about the statute violation for that negative $14, which is nothing major. Future planning opportunities with the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. I'm not quite sure, Josh, I didn't get a chance to talk with you about this, but I thought I'd kind of put a bug in your ear. With the salary reduction plans and whatnot, I just want to make sure that the district with the insurance and all of the flex spending and whatnot, that we have that updated for 2013 and we're in compliance with that,
Right.
with all those regulations that are coming out. And then the last one, and we talked with Julian about this, something with the software. It's not tagging when we do encumbrances at year end. Basically what we're doing is we're setting aside that cash for future expenditure that we know is going to happen in the following year so we can use our budget authority. However, with the fund accounting software, we had it tagged as an encumbrance, but when we paid that bill out, it did not pull from that encumbrance amount. So we had $4,731 in the general fund that was hanging out there that showed that we still had that authority to use, but we knew we had expended it. It didn't net that out, and then we had another instance in Title I. So what we did as part of the audit, we went back through and found those expenditures and matched them up to give you the budget authority so you could spend that. Otherwise, you would have lost approximately, well, it would have been about $6,200 that you would have lost in budget authority. And we didn't want the district to see, you guys lose that. So we went back through and matched those up for you as part of our audit fees.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Kind of as a suggestion, I know I'm kind of stepping out on a limb here, but I do think a lot of these management letter comments could be eliminated or mitigated, resolved, whatever you may call it. If we could possibly get Marla back in the office, maybe just half a day every day. I know Julianne has lots of interruptions with just answering the phone and being the only one in the office, and I know from my perspective at work, and I'm sure the rest of you can relate too, but it's really hard to concentrate and get things done when you're constantly interrupted during the day. The thought process for me just isn't there. And I do think a lot of, if we could eliminate the starts and stops, and possibly maybe working on getting Marla back in with Julianne, that might, hopefully would alleviate a lot of these.
We talked
Josh and I
quite a bit
talked.
today about just in the communication between Julian and Marla and what they have to do is a struggle. It really is. What the solution is, I don't know.
I don't know either.
But it's from day one. It's been an issue in my mind. But, how we solve that problem, I don't know.
Any questions?
No,
Okay.
you discussed it on the phone with me, probably.
Yeah, sure, we did it while you're driving down this highway. Well, actually, you pulled over.
I did pull over.
I called you back, didn't want you, I was like, no, that's fine, I'll let you get down the road. Yeah, he's trying to drive his combine down the road.
Well, it drives itself.
Auto steer, no, just joking.
Give me a break.
Again, though, I thank you for all your questions and comments and for the opportunity to do the audit. Really appreciate working with you guys.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Good evening.
Thank you.
All right, we're ready for item number 2. Activity bus driver. Approve the audit.
Oh, sorry. Are you guys gonna approve the auditor?
Is that, do we need to take action?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Generally do.
Yeah, generally you guys.
Wasn't noted here, so
Okay, sorry, I hate to interrupt, but
I'd entertain a motion to approve the audit.
Mr. President, I move we approve the audit as presented.
Then moved and seconded to approve the audit as presented. Is there any further discussion or questions for Amber? I'll let her get off the hook.
you guys have been really quiet tonight.
We're hungry. No.
You're hungry? Me too.
Well, I appreciate how you've noted that labor is the big issue, and the small districts are it's getting harder and harder to
Yes, I know you guys are really trying to cut costs, because that's really the only thing you can control.
understanding that, but
Mhm.
been patient with us on that. They moved and seconded. No further discussion. All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 6-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, ready for number 2, activity bus driver trade.
Okay, after we tabled this item on at the last meeting, went back and dug in and got some better numbers for you on that. Right now, we pay our activity drivers a driving rate, and then we pay them an idle rate. So the number I used here is $12. Some make 11 something an hour, some make a little more than that. So I just used $12 for the drive time, and 7 1/4 is what we pay for the idle time. So that first table there, roughly $8,400 is what we paid last year for our activity fund drivers. If we change that to a flat rate, that's just paying one flat rate for idle time and drive time. This shows you the different costs for that. Simple calculation, just the total hours and how much did that increase. So when I got into the actual numbers, it looks a little better. I think we can pay a little more. My recommendation is $12 per hour. It'll increase our cost about $2,000. If that helps us get some good folks in and driving, I think we will benefit a lot. As you know, Marla has been driving a lot. Mr. Smith, Danny, is also driving, and both of those have other jobs to do. And my preference would always be to keep Mr. Smith in the classroom and keep Marla in that office as much as we can. So having other folks around to help out is critical. There was some question as to when we pay coaches. If a coach is going to drive to an event, how do we pay them? My recommendation would be, and this would just be a policy matter, not necessarily something we need to take action on, but we would pay them just like we would any other bus driver. And the thing we all have to understand is if we pay, Mr. Smith is driving now, if we pay him during basketball season to drive, and then we pay him all that time that he's there, and he's coaching basketball, we're effectively paying him twice. I recommend this for 2 reasons. One is that it's not going to cost us a dime more if we're paying somebody else to drive or if we're paying that coach to drive. We would be paying the same amount. And the second reason is if a coach is going to drive over to Maxville and make $15 to do it, it's not really going to entice that coach to want to do that. And so, any questions on that recommendation?
No, I agree with what you're saying. That makes sense.
What happens someone drives to, it's like a basketball or volleyball, and they spend the night, do we pay them the entire time they're gone?
No, if they are free to do whatever they want, they use their time as they wish, they're off the clock. And, you know, of course you have to do that within reason. You can't have somebody just drive all the way there and not pay them at all. But we have some old policies from '04 that I was able to dig up, because there was things that Marla was telling me that we pay, you know, like a minimum of an hour and a half for a route. You know, if the route takes 20 minutes, you get paid a minimum of an hour and a half, just as an example. And I asked her, where is that in writing? Where is that in policy? Well, we didn't have it. And after looking, I did find some of that, but it's clear back from '04. A lot of those things need to be in that policy. And part of these updates with our transportation, that needs to be part of the policy, that we spell those things out.
You ready for a motion?
I'd entertain a motion.
I move the board approve paying activity bus drivers $12 per hour for time, drive time and idle time.
Second.
Then move and second to pay activity bus drivers $12 an hour for drive time and idle time. Any further discussion? All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 6-0, approved. Thanks for getting that information again. Helps. Item number 3 is administrator cell phones.
We discussed this last meeting, and it's cheaper to have the administrators on the government plan. Well, for anybody, I wouldn't recommend carrying it beyond administrators. But it amounts to about $50 per line to have them connected on our district phone line. That would be the district plan, the district owns the phone that is purchased and all of that, just like we have mine. If we add both of them to our plan for this year, it'd be an extra roughly $1,000. I do expect them to be available when I call. And such, I think I would recommend we cover that for them. Consider that next year we will apply for this to be under the E-rate program, which will give us a 75% discount. So instead of $50 a month, we're looking at $12.50 a month. If you recall, Maxville does nothing for their administrators on cell phones. Stafford pays $420 a year for their administrators. Also, there's a note about the tax treatment of that. Is that considered a benefit? It's not, in that it's required. Even if they can use it for their personal benefit, it's primarily for their business use, and it is required by an employer to have a cell phone.
Mr. President, I move the board approves the payment of district cell phone lines for the building principals.
Second.
And move and second to approve payment of the district cell phone lines for the building principals. Any discussion? All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 6-0. Item number 4, disposal of excess property.
Our water wheel is the big sprinkler that retrieves that we used to water the football fields. Of course, we don't need that anymore. So I'm recommending we dispose of this item. The proper thing to do would be to take sealed bids. I did mention in the note here that you could possibly donate it to the city or RAC, or the reason I bring that up is somebody mentioned Hudson might have an interest in it to water their football fields. And then we also have 2 buses. Go back to that. I haven't visited with anybody with Hudson or the Rec Commission or
I was looking at bar.
or the city
Sure,
of
we
St.
can
John.
use it, it's donated. Like a scoreboard too, if you're gonna go all out, let's just.
We also have 2 buses that are no longer used, and this is something I've shown you before, but the items in yellow there are what we've already disposed of. 6 and 7, I think, happened last year. 6 is still on the lot. It just hasn't sold. 5 and 12, we did not use those at all last year. And number 12, I don't think we used even the year before that. They don't have much life left in them. If we get rid of those 2, we still have a spare and then a backup route bus to cover us if.
What would that do for insurance too?
I didn't run those costs, but it doesn't do anything until
Little,
we get them.
little insurance?
Until we get them off the lot too, because we're still paying insurance on number 6 because we still own it.
Where is it?
You can't
Up
beat
for auction
that.
at?
It was on Purple Wave,
Okay.
that's where it was.
No bids?
No. So I would put it up with the other ones. Put it up for auction on that Purple Wave again, try that. If I haven't tried to sell any buses up there, that was all from last year. I'm sure it's gonna be going for salvage. so.
I can't believe they didn't get any bids. Usually stuff on there at least gets
It
money.
hasn't, 6 has not been put up for bid yet. We had to obtain a new title to it, and I don't believe that we have ordered that
So
to
is it
them.
7 that is on there?
7 was
'Cause
sold,
We have one on there.
do we?
It may be number 7 that's on there.
Okay, well, 7 was sold.
Okay.
We got like $1,800 for it. The guy came and picked it up and was driving it to Colorado,
Okay.
so. But 6, we had to obtain the title to it. It took us a couple months to get it in, so I don't know if it's gone up yet or not.
Okay.
Well, once it becomes 20 years old, we can't use them as,
They bumped that back up to 25.
that's right. But we still are right close to that.
Yeah, they're just in the way. We don't need them, and in fact, with our transportation situation the way it is, we can buy a small 14-passenger bus, 14 passengers or less, and Mr. Delt, for instance, could drive that to cross-country meets. Doesn't have to have a CDL for that, as long as it's designed to hold 14 passengers or less. So, and that would easily work as a route bus, something like that for us. Current situation.
I think we have a couple things here. The sprinkler, I like your idea of government or other entities that might need it. The recognition, I don't know whether they would use it, have any need.
They've got,
They
they've
have
got
a
one
bid.
there. No.
They have a-
And I really like the idea of, since we work with Hudson Fords, to see if they
Who's the mayor?
take that.
Keith.
That's what I thought it was Pete.
So we want to deal with that first. I'd entertain a motion there, however you guys. It's not gonna be worth a whole lot. You probably could get $300 or $400 out of it.
I don't have any idea. I
Ideas.
did look at, I don't,
It's
those
not
things
new.
are 4,000 or 5,000 new.
I think he says.
We got a notice.
We have some interested, Otis Bison has expressed interest in it, Maxwell has expressed interest in it. We have somebody in the community that's expressed an interest in buying it.
Otis Bison, he said it was worth 1,500. That's what he said. That's just what he told me.
I wouldn't have a problem with donating it to Hudson, but if we don't do that, then I think we can fix it.
Do you think there's a real need for it up there?
Oh, they could use it at the ballpark when they, because they use sprinkler system and hose.
I just, if it's,
Would they, if they have enough water there to?
I don't know, my guess the best thing would be is to have Pete or Brett Finsky is the one that does all the watering up there, kind of check it out and see if there's a need for it, and then
They're gonna have
Bring
to
it
have
back
enough
out.
water supply for it, probably separate
Yeah.
well.
so,
If not, then we probably need to see about that.
I'm in favor of having
Or we can
check
just do
with
this.
us
How
and then.
How about, Mr. President, I would move that the board approve the disposal of the water wheel to donate to the city of Hudson or sealed bids.
If they don't want it.
want it.
Well, why don't we just do the buses for now, and we can check in, see if that's, and then next month we can get rid of it or do whatever. In case somebody, I mean,
Well, that's why, I was reading you put sealed bids in, or,
yeah.
If they don't want it.
then we don't have to come back to visit again.
I'll second your motion.
We have a motion on the floor to donate to Hudson or put it up for sealed bids. That's the way you state it.
I need to
Is there any
stay.
discussion? No, you're not on
for that
council.
one.
Well, you don't think the city of St. John would need it, one of the other parks would. I mean,
They're all here, they also have sprinklers.
okay.
The only thing is the softball field, and they have
Strip.
he has a water wheel now,
Yeah.
since the football field's got sprinklers.
Any other discussion? All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign, 6-0. Good discussion on that. All right, now we have the buses. Looks like up for auction on those, just like the others.
Do we need
Yeah,
a motion to
just-
put them on Purple Wave?
Just to dispose of them through, just through whatever the superintendent chooses.
I move to dispose of the buses according to what the superintendent feels would be viable for district.
Second motion.
Moving second to dispose of the two buses talked about as the superintendent can find options for. Any discussion? All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign, 6-0. Clean up that lot, you're right. Elementary site council.
I'm going to turn this over to Mrs. Seekes.
Thank you. We have the elementary site council / PTO active again. I've got a nice group of volunteers working with me. We've met twice now. We're meeting before the board meetings. At our September meeting, we came up with the bylaws that are included in your supporting documents. Our bylaws follow the suggestions of the I just totally lost the entity. The school board.
Department, the Association of School Boards?
Yes, excuse me, I'm sorry, lost where I got that from. And so our bylaws follow their suggestions. And I think that they are workable bylaws, things that we can adhere to. And so we do need your approval of our bylaws. As you know, a site council can make suggestions, but the Board of Education still has the authority to approve any kind of major activities that may go on. So you see the bylaws in front of you, and really tonight that's the main thing that I'm asking for, is that if you agree with our bylaws, that you would approve them as submitted. In our conversations, I shared the board goals with our group, and our group would really like to help support your goal of improving the facilities and grounds. And we'd like to focus on the playground area in particular, and then maybe around the entrances to the different parts of our building. The other goal they'd like to help support is getting more preschool options in place here in St. John. So those are the two goals that they're very interested in supporting, and we had a very lively discussion and a lot of really good ideas. So I'm excited to be working with the group. We will be reporting to you 4 times a year, let you know what's going on in our group. And of course, you're always welcome to come to the meetings. Most of the time, we will meet at 6 o'clock before the board meeting. Anyone's welcome to come to the meetings, but anytime you'd like to come and visit and hear what's going on, we welcome that. So again, tonight, what you're looking at is the bylaws, and if those are agreeable to you, I ask that you would consider approving those for us. Any questions for me?
I got a question.
Yeah.
Who did you find to be on the site council?
That's a great question. Jamie Lawfer has agreed to function as a president, Cindy Falk as our secretary, Sarah Stolting as our treasurer, Lucia Villanueva is also a member, Victor Uvanda is a member, Tessa Smith is a member, and that's our core group right now. So a nice group to work with. So, and we're still looking. We could use a few more members, but those are the ones that have showed up twice and are just really excited to work and get things done and help out. So that's great.
Is this in conjunction with PTO, or how are they connected?
Well, because it is difficult to find people who are willing to serve on those kinds of committees. When I discussed it earlier this year with Mr. Meyer, he suggested, hey, let's put them together. We've got a group of volunteers. Really, a lot of the purposes of the two groups are the same. And so we're kind of rolling those into one group, one good active group who can focus on some goals and maybe try to get some things done. Any other questions?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the elementary site council bylaws.
Second.
Move second to approve the elementary site council bylaws. Any further discussion? Thank you for providing the reprint prior to this meeting. Help me have insight into doing there. I appreciate what you're doing. So all in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. Approved, 6-0. Library funding.
This item I think has been a topic of discussion for quite some time. Maybe comes up every now and then, if I'm right, understanding the history. Start off by saying this is a great library. It's a pride of the community, and that's one thing I think everybody points to as one of the sources of pride for the district. The budget's been strained for the past several years, and looking at ways we can be more efficient. The paragraph there is just from the audit report and what the library is, how it's operated. Basically, the school district operates the library with input from the board, the interlocal board, is the city, and the school board combined. Kind of oversight for the funds there, and then the library board actually serves as an advisory board for this board, and probably has the most input into what happens there with those programs. You can see I've tried to break it down here. Let me also say, why would we even be looking at this? One, we have limited budget authority with our school district. It's based on enrollment, the number of kids we have. There's formulas that say this is how much money we can spend. So that money is provided to us. We collect that from the taxpayers and get it from the state in the form of state aid to operate our school district program. That's money for the kids, to educate those kids. So when we take that money to pay for the public library, we're taking it from educational programs within the school to pay for the public library. So that's the reason we need to look at this. The public library, the entire library, even the public portion of that, is a form of education. So I think it's easy to make that justification. But looking at just some of the facts, who uses the library? There are roughly 1,600 folks use the library. About 3/4 of them are from inside the city limits of St. John. The remaining are from outside. So it's not just the city of St. John, USD 350 entity. It's about the same proportion of school people and then non-school people that use the library. Mrs. Snyder got these numbers for me. What do we use it for? Well, as a regular school library, everything that accelerated reader and typical library programs, checking out books, would entail. We use that for meetings and trainings. It's a great facility for that. We have our special education offices down at the end of the hall in the old district office. We have our meetings here, of course, and, activities related to that, and then some music and art festivals and things like that. Some non-school use is pretty typical. As far as the public library is concerned, we have a community shelter down here. We have community room events for various activities, and sometimes the recreation group will have activities down here. Now, what are the costs? These are pretty rough costs, but based on 2010-11, so what is the share? How is that divided? Well, the foundation provides the bulk of the money for materials. And you would see that number in the budget that we approved when Mrs. Snyder came earlier this year and presented the budget. The city levies roughly 3 mills, which generates about $18,000, and pays that to the district to fund the operation. The South Central Kansas Library Service, that's what that is. They provide some money to help provide salary for public librarian. Is that right?
Actually,
Some of that
summer
goes to
salaries.
Summer salaries, so to help keep it open in the summer. And then the remaining is paid by the district out of our general fund. Let me skip ahead here real quick. This, you may have seen that. I say they're rough estimates, but a lot of this we can see the specific cost. Now, some of it in the maintenance things, when we mow the lawn, it's not just the library lawn we're mowing, so we have to kind of divide some of those things up. We attribute some of the cost of the audit to this because it adds to our budget. So some of those things are estimated. Other things like the water bill, they're attributed directly to the library. So I present this only as I think it's pretty clear in that the school district pays the largest share. Now, some things we could do. Leave it as is and move on with life. One thing I have researched is the fact that there's 2 districts in the state that levy a tax for a library. One is Kansas City, Kansas School District, and the other one is Independence, Kansas. One operates as a separate board. They collect money within the school district and pay that to the library board, and they operate the library. Much like we do the rec commission. We collect those funds, we pass it on to the rec commission, they operate it however they see fit. The other is Kansas City, Kansas. They operate it more like they collect the tax and the school district operates that library. So one possible solution would be, and there's any number of ways we could go with this, but we could create a special mill levy. Instead of taxing just city residents, maybe we tax the entire school district. Why would we even look at doing that? Well, consider the valuation in the city is about $5 to $6 million. Well, 1 mill collects about $5,000 to $6,000 in revenue. For our school district, it's more like $43,000. So, one solution, you can see the second one here, maybe we just ask the city to pay a bigger share. Well, if they're gonna come up with $50,000, they're gonna have to raise their mill levy to 9 or 10 mills. That doesn't seem like a viable option. I know as a resident of the city, I don't wanna see my taxes go up that much. So, I think that illustrates that there is a valid reason why the school district is paying the largest share of that. And then the other solution would be we just reduce expenditures for the library. So keep things the way they are, pursue another tax structure that, or ask the city to pay more.
What is entailed to do the special 2 mill levy?
We would have to have special legislation at the state level to make that happen. I spent a considerable amount of time with folks at KSD. They spent some time looking through the statutes and finding, and we did come to the conclusion that there is only 2 districts that have that, and there is no authority for us to do that unless we would create a special law to do that, which is the situation in Kansas City and the situation in Independence. There's a special law in the book that only names those 2 districts.
And how many districts actually have the situation that we have?
No, not many.
I mean,
And that's
so-
the reason there is no authority for us to do that in a broad sense.
How would that affect the interlocal agreement we have with the city or anything like that? Would that affect that any?
I would assume it would stay pretty much the same, because the interlocal agreement was established when the library was established, when it was given over. So I don't think that would change, but there would be a lot to getting that done. We would have to approach our senator and representative at the state level and have them introduce it. We would have to work closely with our legal advisors to make sure we're doing things properly. So what does that do for us if we do that? It frees up money to spend it in the classrooms is what it does.
What kind of funding does the foundation have? What is there?
What this amount is interest. There's about, I don't even want to throw out numbers here, I want to say about 800,000.
Somewhere between 650 and 800,000 is directly attributed to the library. I'd have to.
That's their
Full.
balance, and we've kind of been living off the interest there.
So we use whatever interest it generates annually?
Yeah, and it's not, they set the budget amount trying to guesstimate the interest, and then if the principal goes down a little bit, that's the way it is, and if it gains more interest, that's the way it is.
I think it was roughly 620,000 when it started down in South Central, and it's grown a little bit.
Well, it went backwards for a while.
Yeah, it went backwards, but it's gone above it now, and so.
When did that all?
That was back, it was been 6 or 7 years ago.
Kevin was on the board when they did that.
But that was a good move, because a lot of it's just earning 1%, whatever they had in CDs.
I would change our position about 70,000.
So if you added the 2 mill levy on and the city doesn't put any money, is that because you didn't want to double them up? Is that what you're?
Yeah, we could do any number of things. This is just I guess, a first shot at what might that look like if we did levy a special tax for the library itself. And maybe you keep the same 3 mills with the city, or
I think we need to look at doing something different because our situation's not getting any better. You know, when they initially, back in, I don't know when the library was established, you know.
It was 68.
You know, funding was so strong, that I don't think they ever expected it to
And we've lost so much enrollment in that.
Well, the labor is what is, if you look at that, though, it's the labor that's getting you now more than anything.
Well, and utilities are gonna start
And
going up
then
too.
we have some repairs to look at as far as the library does. As
Air
far as
conditioning, roof.
air conditioning. And the one thing that I want to look at also is, you know, what would happen if you didn't have this? You would actually have to have space for the special ed people, as well as wherever you have the board meetings and so forth. You know, this is a facility for us, but, you know, the options aren't good if you didn't have this facility.
Has anyone approached the city?
No, I've talked to one council member just to give them a heads up that we're looking at some options. I've discussed it with the library board, just to say, listen, we're not trying to attack anything here. I think that's the important thing that everybody understands is, if I said, is it the consensus of this board to try to keep the situation with the operation of the library pretty much the same? Is that a fair statement? Everybody's very proud of the library and wants to see it maintained as a public library in the evenings in the summer. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
So,
So much.
I mean, I think we all want to see that, but the question is, how do we do that? And, you know, when we look at reducing expenditures for the library, they're pretty lean as it is. The only way to do that is to cut out. You're going to cut labor costs, and then you're going to cut utilities. Other than that, and we still have to have a school library. We would still own
Only
this
other
building,
thing you could
so-
do is rent it out as office space or something, they try and get money back from it, but
How does the local option budget fit into any of that? Is it at its, I mean, can we increase that, or is it at its maximum?
We can increase it with a public vote. We could increase that 1 mil, or not, excuse me, it ends up being about 2/3 of a mil. We can, it's based on our general fund. It's 30% of our general fund. We can go up to 31%, which would raise an extra 30,000 maybe. But it has to be a public vote to do that. But, so would this would have to be.
What I'm getting at is if we want to keep the library open, we're gonna have to pay for it one way or the other.
Yes, the local option budget gives you a little more room. And it's a more doable option than
Going through the state.
going through the state. I'm not sure how.
is there expense with that
folks would
too?
be. There would likely be some legal expense. I haven't talked to KASB and what they might be able to provide, but I'm sure we would have some legal expense.
I could see those 2 mills, that special levy taking a couple of years to get done. Would that be an accurate assessment or not?
It could. I don't even know what it would take to get legislation passed, especially when it's legislation raising taxes, if you want to throw it out that way. But it will be. To folks outside the city limits, it would be an increase in taxes.
The city wouldn't be paying anything under that scenario.
And we could do anything. Maybe it would
There are
be,
3 mills.
maybe it would be 1 mill that would be the special levy, and then the city keeps their 3 mills, or something like that. There's any number of ways we could do it. I'm not presenting this as a recommendation, only as illustration to see where do we want to head with it? What direction should we take? And we may get down the line and decide, now this isn't the way to go.
Is that
Once
something
we
we
get more
should have
facts.
a public meeting about, to talk to citizens about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think you need to have, just, so you don't have public outcry about just raising taxes, is it truly a necessity to keep this library open as many hours as we do, and if the public really insists that, then at least you have, let them be the spokesman of that by through public meetings.
That special levy, the legislature approved that now, it still comes to a vote?
I'm pretty sure, yes.
So you could do all that and then you could vote down.
I'd rather see the local option budget because I think it fits better than if you do it this way. Because then
It comes from the same. Yeah.
it's the same thing, but with the way that they're willing to, local option is more raising funds more to fit, maybe not so much of your classroom issues. The emphasis that the governor wants to make sure that all the money's going into the classroom more and more. Or local option is, to me, for those things that are important, but yes, maybe not part of the classroom.
President Sparrow, to answer the question as far as how much money is in the Education Foundation, as of the 28th of September, in the library-related funds, there's $858,000. Now, it's split up to about 4 different funds, but they all are attributed to the library.
There's a possibility that 25,000 could grow a little bit. So 1% may be a better, instead of a 2%.
I don't think they're taking all of, I know they're not taking all the English out. That's just a portion of it.
Right.
Well, how about this? I'll look into it a little deeper. What money do we have available in the foundation? And give you a dollar amount on what the increase in LOB would be, and the possibility of what would that entail to do a special levy, and have some better numbers for you next meeting. Continue the discussion.
Or are we wanting to do this year, or is it talking about next year, or when are you talking?
Yes, this year, if it could go through, and I think that would be, you'd have to see what all that would entail and how long it might take.
Well, I was thinking that, if we do pay off our bond and stuff in September,
Right.
that'll make things a little easier,
Yep. Yeah.
because we won't have that.
Yeah, we won't have that levy at all next year.
3/4 of the cost is a heavy load.
It is. Especially when we're taking money from kids in the classroom. That's a hard pill to swallow. If we have to get to the point of getting rid of a teacher or something like that, I'm not saying we need to do that, but if you get to that point, we have that choice, where we're going to make the choice.
Well, we've already got to do that.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
We've already got rid of
Sure.
I think we've
because-
trimmed the fat a lot.
Yeah.
If you bring back some more information, that would be good for discussion.
Good. We do that.
7, capital improvement purchases.
Okay, I included this more as an item of discussion, but our computer needs, we have some immediate needs that we need to get done, get taken care of with our computers in the classrooms, the elementary. They're doing these reading programs, Reading Plus and Lexia, but they're not able to run like they need to run because our computers are too old. That's the first issue we need to address. So with your consensus, I would just take care of that and buy what we need to get that taken care of. I'm guessing 5,000 is where we'll be at for that, getting some desktop computers to take care of that need. We'll still be looking at iPads down the road and laptops, but that will be more of a purchase. Also the wireless, Mr. Smith, he came to me early on, a couple of months ago, and we've been trying to work with Golden Belt to get another quote on making our buildings wireless accessible. That's going to be about $12,000. So expenses like that I would like to bring to you and have them formally approved. But I know the one is about $12,000. I don't know where the other one's going to be. So I guess with your consensus, I'll just move forward with those and we'll approve them at the board meeting next time. But it would be to get the building wireless accessible everywhere and get those computers taken care of for the elementary. Any questions about those? And then the other purchase would be a van. And right before the meeting here this afternoon, I was looking at our state bid list. I was thinking we need to replace our van. It's in rough shape, and the mileage is at the beginning of the year was 146,000. It needs to be replaced. It's in bad shape. I don't feel comfortable sending folks very far away.
How long have we had that?
Wasn't one of them donated at one time?
That's the one Burgess got, it was.
It was donated.
No, Mr. Burgess.
Oh,
He got it
okay.
in
Okay.
Kansas City someplace.
And I know I could get a good used van, low mileage for about 18 grand, but then looking at the state bid list, I can get a brand new one for 22. So we don't have to go through the formal bid process if we take it off of the state bid list. So that would be the other, we can go ahead and take action on that just so we formally do that. But if the board's in agreement, I would recommend we purchase a new van off of the state bid contract.
Do they have the same warranty and sort of?
Yeah. This would be a Dodge Caravan, 2013 model.
What are the vans used for differently than Suburban?
Nothing really. Just hold, you know, the van's gonna hold 6 kids and a driver. Suburban's gonna hold 8 and a driver. We don't always need to fill up. We don't always fill up the Suburban. In fact, a lot of the times we use a Suburban, we could be using a van. Right now, the van goes down to Pratt to take a student up there. Makes 2 trips back and forth to Pratt.
Probably get a little better fuel mileage too than you.
So, and the ultimate goal would be to get this, get all of our vehicles in more of a rotation where we're not ending up with lots of them with 130 to 150,000 miles on them.
Need a motion for that?
Yeah, let's, the van.
I will make a motion to let the superintendent purchase the van as he sees fit.
Second.
Been moved and second to approve the purchase of a van as the superintendent sees fit. Do you want to?
John, do I need a maximum dollar amount?
Not necessarily, because if it's over 20, we need to have the formal bid process, or we have to go to the state bid contract. So
Can you just
I
say
will
state
follow
bid?
the law. Yeah.
Can you just-
State bid.
Is in your motion?
Yes, it was.
It's using a state bid process. Okay. No. All right, good. Any further discussion? All those in favor, right hand, pose same sign, 6-0.
And on the wireless access and the elementary computers, are we comfortable with getting it done? Okay.
It's under the line, so. All right, added agenda items, we have 2 certified employee evaluation process and procedures.
Okay, the state is requiring school districts to change their certified employee evaluation. I don't want to just say teacher evaluation. That's typically what we think of, but we're talking about teachers, principals, and your superintendent. So all of those will be required to have a specific evaluation process that meets certain guidelines. We can do that for next year, or we can hold off another year and wait. Here would be the process. Either way, we need to look at what are we going to do this year. As part of the negotiations process, we agree with the Teachers Association that we have a committee and give them a recommendation or allow them to give a recommendation to what they think works well. So understanding that, what we need to do is understand what are the guidelines. The state has the KEEP, which is Kansas Educator Evaluation Protocol. They have their own system. We can adopt that. It has the process and the form that we need to fill out to evaluate the teachers and everything. There's also some others that are possibilities. McCrell is the Mid-Continent Research Laboratory, or Research Education Laboratory, something like that. That they have a form. Also, there's someone by the name of Charlotte Danielson that has research on what effective teaching is. And then there's other formats as well. So the first step would be for us to understand what all those options are. We'll visit briefly about that at the next meeting. And on our November 9th meeting, the administrators and I will present that to the staff to understand. We need to have the committee, 2 teachers from each building, our local Teachers Association representative, and then the 3 administrators and 2 board members. So we'll need to take action, but I would like a couple of folks that would like to be on that committee. My goal would not be to have more than 3 committee meetings. Maybe even just 2. But we need to understand all the options. That committee will narrow those options, and then the volunteers that serve on that committee could update the board. The teachers could update their folks, and then we give a recommendation by the end of February. So our choices would be, what system do we want to adopt? What's a good way to evaluate our people? And we could vote on that at the board meeting. Now, the committee may say, we don't have enough information, we can wait another year, let's wait another year. So the committee may say, that's what we need to do also.
Any board member want to serve on that committee to help develop this tool?
I think one person volunteered herself by not showing up.
And
I did.
That's on camera.
I did ask her if she wanted to do that, and she said, yeah, if nobody else really wanted to do that, she would be willing to. So I wouldn't say she was knocking down the door to be first in line, but
Well, there's one.
And this is just to look at the different
It's the evaluation tool for
Evaluation.
how evaluations will occur, or what's in it. It's not
I mean,
doing
I could
evaluation.
help if you can fit it in my schedule.
Okay.
So Carolyn and Barb,
I make that motion.
And we'll need a motion.
We
It's
are.
okay. And the reason I interrupted there real
Stan's a
quick,
substitute.
if we make that a formal committee that's appointed by the board, it's subject to open meetings, and technically we need to publish where the meetings are and do all that. If we just have a couple of volunteers, it's not a formal.
Right, just a committee meeting.
You're right.
Hey, way to step up there, Barb, I'm proud of you.
He's gotta figure out a time I can be there.
Okay. Anything else on that evaluation process?
No.
Okay. Activity fund treasurer.
Our activity fund, typically, the way that works in most schools is, and the reason the activity fund exists is to give some more flexibility at the building level to run activities. There's plenty of times where Mr. Bergen is, he needs to get checks for officials, and maybe he wasn't here today, and Julianne is already gone, things like that. With Julianne running that activity fund, makes it difficult. So the typical practice, and maybe you can speak to how it worked in Stafford, what I'm used to and what I know a lot of school districts are, is that's run at the building level. The principal runs it, and then the secretary would serve as the bookkeeper for that. So why would I even bring this up? To make things more efficient in Mr. Bergen's office, and to make things more efficient for Julianne in our office with her, dealing with our district finances and payroll and education foundation and activity fund. It's a struggle. We would still have district oversight as far as reconciling the bank accounts.
I think that's the big thing that I have is
Signing off on them.
following what was presented tonight, is that we make sure we are double checking things.
Separation of duties.
Yes.
Right, and I think this helps in that regard
I
also.
think so. I think it's a good move, myself.
And I did ask Amber tonight on the phone before she came. I said, we're looking at doing this. I said, are you comfortable with that? And she said, yeah, as long as you have somebody that is competent and can do it.
And we'll still get the monthly reports on that.
Yes.
And this is AUCGS?
Yeah.
She did it for 4, didn't she?
Yes, she is. She is an accountant
Yeah.
in this major, so.
Any motion?
Yeah, we'll need a motion in order to approve that, right?
Yeah, and we need a motion because this board appoints who is the activity fund treasurer, and we already did that, so it would be a move to replace Julianne as the activity fund treasurer with Susan.
Mr. President, I move the board appoint Susan Lewis to replace Julianne Owens as the activity fund treasurer for the remainder of the 2012-13 school year.
Second.
Then moving second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, right hand, by the same sign, carried 6-0. Thank you. Go with communications, begin with the elementary principal.
And my board report is included in your supporting documents on page 24. An MTSS update, MTSS multi-tiered system of supports. First through fourth grades have been up and running with MTSS in groups. And teachers are working on their next regroup. So MTSS is designed with the students' needs in mind. So as learning happens, students change, and we need to move those students into different groups as their learning needs change. This takes a lot of time and thought on the teacher's part to have that organized and make sure that we're putting kids where they really need to be. And I have to say, I think my teachers are doing a really great job Kindergarten, since kindergarten students at the beginning of the year spend quite a bit of time and energy and brain power just on learning procedures and how to eat breakfast, how to eat lunch, all those really important things. Kindergarten teachers didn't want to do that baseline testing until a little bit later, so our kindergarten MTSS groups are really just now getting up and going. And I have every confidence that they will do a great job there as well. Just very proud of the work and effort that the teachers and instructional aides have put into this process. If you ever want to come to my building during MTSS time, come about 8:10 and you can see 3rd and 4th grade do it, and then right after that you can see 1st and 2nd grade. It's awesome. Every little group, every nook and corner has a group of kids and a teacher, and it's active learning. It's neat. I enjoy walking around during that time of the day, so come see us do that. PE bike unit, great unit, really successful again this year. Ms. Friesen wanted me to make sure that you knew who helped out. We have volunteers that help out. Rodney Fox, Nick Garcia, Nick Law, Terry Spradley, Chief Saylor, Don Siebert, Janelle Hudson, Marcia Dryden, Leslie Tanner, Becky Reed, Bill Clausing also came and helped. It was a great time. Mr. Meyer got out and rode around with us too, so appreciate all the volunteers that helped make that unit a success for our kids. Quivira tour information. Our 5th grade students went on the Quivira tour again this year. They had a great time, and I'd like to thank the Conservation District. They provided water for the kids, and they also donated $100 to the district to help cover transportation costs, so I appreciate that. The kids had a good time. On the same day, the 6th graders went fishing. I'd like to thank Mitch Menace and Tom Turner. 6th graders had a great time. Pretty much everybody caught something, I heard. So I heard a lot of fish tails that afternoon, so that's a good time for the kids. Elementary music concert is October 23rd, and I believe this year we will have a patriotic theme, so put that on your calendar, should be fun. And of course, we're always getting ready for parent-teacher conferences. That is a very valuable time of interface between our teachers and parents. So, and we usually have a good turnout, and we are hoping to continue with that tradition. Administrative, you can see my enrollment, and these are the numbers that I turned into the state of Kansas on September 20th. The pre-K enrollment, we have 28 students in attendance right now. One of them is counted by another district, and this is how things are. This is nothing new, no new information here. So that's my enrollment. And again, site council met this evening at 6. And as I said before, I'm excited about the group and the things that they would like to get done. School pictures, October 9th. If for some reason you want your school picture taken, we'll get you on the list. Come on October 9th and trade them at board meeting later or whatever. What you do what you want to do. Okay. Deb Esau is coming again on October 19th to work with our teachers to analyze the data from Lexia and Reading Plus. We talk about these programs quite a bit. Great programs for kids, great programs for teachers. Falling back to the MTSS information, we need good data on our kids to make sure we are using their time most efficiently. We need to know where those deficits are so we can address a deficit specifically. And those programs help us as educators do that. So Deb's coming again to make sure we're doing that to the best of our ability. Then I thought you'd just be interested in some information from my principal's building report that went to KSDE. Just some general numbers here to help you know the population that you're serving. K through 6, 21% of our total students are ELL. That means English language learner. That means another language besides English is spoken in the home, whether that is completely or just some of the adults speak another language some of the time. So about 21%. And in general, the trend is the lower the grade, the higher the percentage. So our ELO percentage in general is trending up as the years go on. IEP students, that means individualized education plan. Pre-K through 6, 28% of your students have an individualized education plan or are special ed. When you take out our preschoolers, which are of course skewed toward IEP, since that's the population our preschool is designed specifically to serve, when you take those kids out, we're about 22%. Free lunch students, K-6, 50% of your students are eating free lunch, breakfast every day. Reduced lunch students is another 23% on top of that. So 73% of your K-6 students are free and reduced lunch. I think that's a pretty impressive number. You should know that that's the population we're serving right now. And again, those are just some numbers I thought you might be interested in. One more administrative item. Halloween, there will be a change from tradition. We will not be doing the parade or costumes. We'll just be doing classroom parties. I wanted to give you guys a heads up on that in case community members talk to you about that. So we'll be doing a little change there. Any questions for me on any of that information?
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome.
Morgan?
Yes. I think they have, you got a report in front of you. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so. First one, yeah, you'll see the first one I have where it says ACT data. Okay, and I'm sure all of you have heard of the ACT, American College Testing. As students that we have students all over the country that take the ACT. The majority of the ACT states in the middle of the country. A lot of states on the West Coast down there take the SAT. We take the ACT. This just kind of gives you, you can see a 5-year trend, us compared to the state from 2008 to 2012. You can see our kids, how many tested. You can see the first one, English, math, reading, science, and then they have a composite score. The highest score you can get on ACT is 36 points if you got everything correct. Very few individuals ever get a 36. And they give you, you can see how our kids did in each of the subjects over the years, in the last 5 years, and how they did composite-wise. You know, they talk about whether kids are ready to go to college and whether they're prepared to be successful in college. You can go research, and they give you benchmarks here over on the right-hand side. They'll give you a benchmark that English comp and algebra, social science and biology. You can see certain numbers. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner of your sheet, or on the. You can just scroll over just a little bit to the right. Right there, you can see they have a benchmark. They've established college readiness benchmarks. So if a student 18 on an ACT English, 22 math, 21 reading, 24 science, and then it tells you scores, benchmark scores, the minimum score needed on an ACT subject area test to indicate a 50% chance of obtaining a B or higher, or about a 75% chance of obtaining a C or higher in the corresponding credit-bearing college courses. Now, whether a student's successful career-wise, whether they do a vocation, whether they go to 2-year college or 4-year college, has a lot more to do than, there's a lot more involved in how they do on the ACT. We all know that. But this kind of gives you an idea about kids, taking classes, preparing for that. That's just a little bit of data there. And kids can take the ACT. I mean, they start taking it. We have, most of the time, our kid may take it when they're a sophomore, and then maybe a couple times when they're a junior, and a couple times when they're a senior. Some kids wait till they're a senior to take it. And I think in the time I've been here, we may have had a junior high kid take it every now and then. Apparently they wanted them to take it, yeah.
Ryan took it last year.
Pardon?
Ryan took it last
Yeah,
year.
right. And we've had, that's happened just on a few occasions, just a few times kids took it. Just to kind of see where they stand, yeah. So. But colleges, if a student is a college kid that's going to college, and college isn't for everybody. If you are going to colleges, college, it makes a difference because scholarships and money are tied directly to an ACT score. That's just the way it is. So if they have a chart breakdown. You score 28, you get this. You score 30, you get this. You score 25, you get this. That's just the way it is. Colleges have it. So that's the importance of that. It's relative to monetarily. It also establishes, gives them an idea about what courses they may take when they get enrolled in that school, based on how they've done on these classes. So anyway, if anybody had any questions and those ACT dates that we have, those are all on the school calendar. You'll also see on the school calendar where it has registration, and kids have registered by this date to take the test the following. So that's all on the school calendar. You'll keep track of those. I put in there Common Core standards. You know, we've been talking about Common Core that 45 or so states belong to, and Kansas is one of them that we'll be using to prepare kids, the new curriculum for college and career rating. There's a new accreditation model. We've been working on that, which will have an effect on schools in Kansas. I went to a KSB conference in Topeka on the 5th that was informative about these things and about what Mr. Meyer mentioned about the evaluation process for teachers and principals and superintendents. Administrative, the classification, you can see what we have. 7 through 12 is 154. We have 9 through 12, which we turned in on the 20th, is 96. The biggest of a 1A school was 101. Last year, if you remember right, we turned in 99, and 4 schools were 99. 2 of them went to 2A, 2 went to 1A. Well, the number this year was 101. So that's how far off we were from being 2A, which doesn't really matter as far as that. It just tells you an idea. There are 98 1A schools, I believe. 91 of them play volleyball. They went all the way from 101 to 15. I'm sure you can look on it. Some of you have been on the Acacia website. We have 8 schools in our league. I didn't give you a handout this as far as you can look on the Acacia website. We have 8 schools in our league. 2 of them are 2A and 6 of them are 1A. So, Ness City and Central Plains are 2A. The other ones are all 1A. Andre mentioned something about the pictures on the 9th. Postseason, we host volleyball 1A sub-state this year. I wouldn't think that was going to happen, but since we hosted last year, I didn't think we did, but they asked us. It was really, and they didn't ask us till last week. It was in the middle of the week, so there'll be 6 schools at our sub-state. You can get on the website, Acacia website. It's pretty much a league tournament, 2 weekends in a row. Because we host a league tournament this year on the 13th, and on the 20th we'll have 4 more schools coming back. So it'll be great. Plus Fairfield. So that's what it'll be pretty much. Tennis is going to go to Cimarron this week on Friday. Cross country regional, I didn't have it at that time. I didn't know it, but it's at Meade. So we'll get out the golf course at Meade. I think there was anything else I was going to mention. Activity account, you guys should have those. So if you have any questions or anything about schools or classification or league things or CPO or anything for that matter. Thank you. You bet.
Mark?
On our teaching and learning part, standard of excellence, recognitions, there should be something in the paper coming out about this, but it's, I think, pretty typical for there to be lots of standard of excellence recognitions, so we're very proud of that. The elementary made standard of excellence in both reading and math, high school reading, math, and history and government. And then those the grade levels, 3rd, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 11th in reading, and then math 3rd, 6th, and 8th, and then history and government was in 8th grade. So they award that standard of excellence by the grade level and by the school group also. So great job. The principals should be commended for the effort, and the teachers for their efforts in the classroom. Fantastic. Our state assessment changes kind of go along with the Common Core. Mr. Bergen and I attended a KASB summit here recently, and I don't want to say anything derogatory about one of our State Board of Education members, but Mr. Walt Chappell was there, and I don't know if you know the man, but I said before I won't say anything derogatory about him, so I'll stop there. I sometimes visit with me about him, and he had a lot of opinions to share for the good of the group. But with our state assessment, it goes along with this Common Core changes. We have some choices, which I was under the assumption that they were headed in this direction with the Smarter Balanced Assessment. That's how it was going to change, and it's going to be a different type of test rather than saying this is what's going to be on the test and learn it really well and you'll do fine. It's going to be a test that is adaptive on the computer, which means effectively if you get a question right, you get another one that's harder. And if you get that one right, you get another harder one. If you get it wrong, you get an easier one. So over time they ask those questions and they find the level. The tough thing about that is you have a kid that's used to getting 95 and 100% in class and on all the tests, and now they're getting about half the questions wrong. That's a difficult thing for those kids to do. But that's one choice. And again, I was under the assumption, a lot of folks in the state were under the assumption that we're going that direction. There's also a group, PARCC, Partnership for Assessment for Readiness in College and Careers. I think I got that right. It's different states in the nation. So the Smarter Balanced Assessment is some states, this PARC is other states in the nation. They're working on an assessment. We just found out last week ACT is also coming out with an assessment. So bottom line is, we don't know what's going to happen. We will have a new assessment in 2 years. This year, next year will be with the same, and maybe even next year they'll come up with a decision there. So we're kind of in limbo here, but on the Common Core, there's really a focus for career and college readiness. When we talk about career and college readiness, I guess if I would ask you, do all kids need to go to college? Would you say you agree with that or not?
Yeah.
I think they need to get away from home and learn something, technology of some sort.
Right, and I would think most people would say, not every kid needs to go to college, and I think that's probably true. But when we talk college, we're talking any education after high school. So I think we all need to get used to that notion that when we're talking college, we're talking technical college, vocational college, any education that happens after high school. They presented some good data that by the year 2018, 64% of the jobs will require some post-secondary education. There was a lot of data that shows, a lot of the jobs that go to high school dropouts and people with just a high school diploma, that even 10 years ago, there was a good chunk of our population that had those jobs, and they're good jobs, and how that is changing. And down the road, there's going to be less of a percentage that hold those middle-class jobs. So when we talk about career and college readiness, a lot of the things we're talking about are the same. Kids need to be able to read well. They need to be able to perform, they need to solve problems and communicate, things like that. So a lot of the things are very similar. So when we talk college, we're not just talking university, bachelor's degree. So that's kind of where we're headed with that. The administrators and I were working on the Energy Bus book study. we're focused on vision and positive energy this week. It really gives us some good conversations, and we get to know each other and kind of how we think on some things. And I think we learn just as much from each other as we do from reading the book. But the focus was the fact that on our energy bus, I'm in control. I'm the one driving that, and they, as the leaders, are in control there, and they need to take direction. That direction comes from vision. And what is the vision for where we want to go as a district? And where is the vision that they want to take their school as building principals? Common Core standards, I kind of addressed that with the above bullet there. Administratively, I was hoping to have some information for you on maintenance custodial updates. There were some expectations set. Dr. Kenworthy started a document. It was on my agenda too the last couple of weeks to get something done on that. It's not done, so I don't really have anything to report there. Our budget update, I'll try to be brief, but there's a lot of information here. The first thing is our enrollment, and you saw the numbers from our principals. This compares, this is what was audited last year, what we actually had by grade level, and then this is our head count, the number of kids that we had this year on the count day. This is the FTE. This is the number that affects our funding. Kindergartners count as half, and special ed, preschoolers count as half. So there's some different calculations there, but these are wrong. This should be 2.5 more. Let me pull up this somewhere. Bear with me real quick. I'll take that back. I'll just tell you what it is rather than search for it. It's 324.5. So if you think about our funding, this is where our funding was last year, 301.5. Now, because of the calculations, we can use last year's numbers or 2 years ago or the 3-year average, or excuse me, this year, last year, the 3-year average. The funding number we actually used was 311.5, but this year we're going to be at 324.5. That's our funding number. Now, if you look, most of that increase is right here in our non-graded. We have lots of folks taking adults working on their diploma and learning English. That's the bulk of the increase right there. We are up a few. If you see K-12, our numbers and head count, we're up a few. So how does that affect our budget? It's quite a bit more than we thought it would be. Let me talk cash balances real quick. Amber mentioned it before. If you remember this number from our previous discussions, this is just our spendable cash balance. In the audit report, it shows Recreation Commission, capital outlay, some of those things that we don't really have access to pay teachers and things like that. This is our spendable cash balance. With our audited amounts, the federal funds that we had to shift and reclassify, we're in a lot better position than I thought. We still went down cash balance, but instead of losing about 80,000 for the year, we lost about 40,000 for the year. So we're in a lot better cash position than I thought we were when we last visited about this. Okay, so there's some good news there. Now, what does all this mean funding-wise? This isn't a great table here, but it has the information on it. I'm a math teacher. This is what I expected. When we built the budget, this is what I planned on. We planned on about 307 for our enrollment number. That was the best estimate, and they had great numbers, only because we were pretty close, other than the adult students. When we budgeted, if you recall, we padded that budget. Why would we pad the budget? Well, that reduces the likelihood that we'll need to republish if the budget is higher. There's costs associated with running ads in the paper. Also, on the LOB, you can't republish that. We say we're going to collect this tax, you're stuck. So if your enrollment goes up a lot, you can't republish that and collect that additional money. So there's and send it there to pad that a little bit. And I padded it by about 5 kids. We got a lot more than that. So this is our budget figure from our enrollment. So compared to even our budgeted amount is quite a bit more, about 88,000 more. Now, again, we can't increase our LOB above what we budgeted. That is what it is. So how about increase from what I expected? Well, we're about 127 more in the general and about 13,500 more in the LOB. Now, with these adult students, SDAC actually educates them, so we pass on the base state aid to them, but we get to keep some of the weighting. So we get the base state aid for 1 FTE, and then for transportation and free and reduced lunch, we get extra money. That's the extra money we get to keep there. So really in our general fund, this is the increase from what was expected, so about 72,000 more. If you think about our cash balance being higher than I expected, we're looking at it unexpected revenue of about 112,000. Now keep in mind we budgeted to decrease our cash balance by 130,000. So we're still not quite to closing that budget hole, but we're pretty close. So questions about that? It's great news. It's a lot better picture than the last time we talked about that. I wish I could take credit for it, but it's not. It's nothing I did. And a budget information document. I will send this to you electronically also. I'm not going to go over it here. I want to give it to you. I'll put this on my report next time, and we can visit about it if you have questions. I see this as a resource. This isn't something most people are going to sit down and read in its entirety. It's not very interesting unless you're very interested in this stuff. I see it more as a resource if you think, for board members or for somebody that's really interested in that. Some of our staff may be interested in, wait a second, what about that at-risk fund? Or why are we buying a new van when we can give our teachers a raise or whatever? Some of those things are explained here. Also, there's a history of the budget expenses from each year. So for basically the last 10 years. So like for capital outlay here, you'll see and we have the budgeted expense, or the expense history, and then what we have budgeted for this year. And then there's some various things that explain things like budget authority and what is the interlocal and what does it mean when we transfer money, how does that work into it. So that document is on our school website also. So if you have questions about budget, it's a good place to look, I guess, and can serve as a report to the public about how our district funds are spent and what all that means. One more item, I'll be brief on this one. Federal funding update, what is, really state and federal. One thing that you might see in the news is the sequestration. The Congress had a special budget committee that they put together to try to whittle down some of our expenses at the federal level. They didn't come to an agreement, so these automatic cuts will take effect at the beginning of the year. But what does that mean for us? We have about $100,000 in federal revenue. We're talking about a 7.5% cut, so it's not a huge deal, but there might be, $7,000, $8,000 lost in federal funding down the line there. IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Act. It affects our special ed. So I've been talking to our special ed director, Andy Ewing, about what does this mean for you guys. And he said it won't be that big a deal this year, maybe even next year, maybe down the line. His bigger concern right now is the Affordable Care Act, or I'll say Obamacare. It's how it's more affectionately known. But that will have a bigger effect on them, especially because they don't cover, their coverage for their classified employees is not very good. So What does all that mean for us? It may mean a higher assessment that we pay toward to the co-op, because really their costs are our costs eventually. So, briefly on state taxes, I do want to bring up this. I know I'm kind of long-winded tonight, but let me just point out one thing. We're talking about the state taxes. You have two things. They've reduced the income tax brackets from 3 down to 2 and reduced rates. So there's going to be loss for state revenues, which will affect us eventually. Also, which will be a bigger deal for state revenue, is the reduction in the pass-through taxing, which would be like partnerships, small businesses, LLCs. Small businesses, they pass through that income. The business doesn't pay taxes. The individual pays that at their income tax rate. That income tax is eliminated. That won't happen anymore with this new tax rate. And one thing I found interesting, I can send this to you if you like, but what's going to happen? Well, with our projected ending balances, this is what happens. This is based on the governor's expenditures and the new tax law. This isn't assuming the amazing growth that we're going to see from this. And this can't happen. These negative balances can't happen. We have to balance the budget. So what does that mean? Cuts. So if things don't change, either tax structure changing, which means a tax increase now, or increase in the economy, the growth in the economy, things will get very frustrating very quickly. If you think about that pass-through income, small business, look at the last bullet here. The doctor owns his own practice. He's not going to be paying income tax, but his receptionist will be. And there's incentive there for some of these corporations to reclassify as a small business. So we may see even more losses there. So it's concerning. I'm not a tax expert, and I hope it works. But it does have some implications for us. Last thing I'll mention, or the second to last thing, I'm going to be speaking at a presentation for aspiring superintendents in Topeka on October 18th, and I included the board goals on here. I'm going to do that from now on, and we'll report on those each month. But I don't have a lot of progress there. That's all.
Yeah. Thanks for this document.
Yeah.
Well put together, explains things. Hope all of you had a chance to read that.
But I think it's something, if you're talking to citizens in the community, that's a document to have in front of you.
Again, it's on our website. I can give anybody a copy if we need to.
All right, board member reports. Chad?
Nothing to report tonight.
I don't think I have anything.
Are you talking about having reference and stuff? Kevin was asking me about the raise and the, mill levy, and I got out your report from the week before that and started reading it to him.
Yeah.
So I figured I might as well just
Sure.
tell them the way it is, so thank you for putting that in there.
Yep.
Don't have anything to report, but I got a question. The numbers for K through 6 for free and reduced lunches, can we get that for the district as a whole? Kind of curious. If you could send that to us or something.
Yep. Can you give me another week?
Yeah.
I'll put it in my
I'm
Friday
not
note.
in a hurry.
Yeah.
For it.
Congratulations on your honor of getting speaking to people.
Oh, I don't know that it's an honor.
I think it is.
It's one of those things like, miss the meeting.
Oh, come on, I'm sure they put a little more thought into it than that.
I attended this special ed board meeting. just usual stuff happening there, but they did have a presentation by Kevin Hayes I thought was really good. He is going in to help teachers deal with behavior. He's helping teachers who are struggling, helping troubled kids. And these are kids that are placed in special ed. A lot of it's behavioral issues, and it's he's just a great resource, but he made a presentation I thought was really good. It's just understanding how to attack these problems so we don't have those kids booted out of our system. We're having to deal with it. And where is he? He is independent, licensed.
Yeah, he lives in Andover.
But I thought his presentation was really good. It's just being very positive with students, and students will be students, but learning how to deal with them is important. And he's working with the teachers and how to turn a bad situation into a good one. I know that they've dealt with several situations already to try to diffuse them. A lot of these kids end up in the or it's a Haskins Learning Center, and they can eliminate some of that. That would be helpful. And it's working with teachers, so it's a behavior team is what it is. We, along with a couple other people, go in and work with the school, work with the personnel on how to deal with these behavior issues. And just some personnel issues that we dealt with, but other than that, it's running pretty smoothly down there. So, that's all I had to report. And we have executive session items or anything? We do.
Only for, about me,
Yeah.
my evaluation.
5 minutes. So I entertain a motion to go to
Mr.
executive.
President, I move that the board goes into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters in order to protect the privacy of non-elected personnel. That they return to open session in 5 minutes in this room.
Second.
Moving and second to go to executive session for 5 minutes with the superintendent. All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 6-0. Now, closing business items. We're back in regular session now. Any resignation of contracts?
I did mention in the note maybe about basketball, we didn't have time to get anything resolved on that, so still working on it.
Okay. Do you entertain a motion for adjournment?
Mr. President, I move we adjourn.
Been moved second to adjourn. All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 6-0. Thanks for coming. Thanks for